Perfect. Okay. So why don't we go ahead and start off with each person can go ahead and introduce themselves. If that sounds good.
I can go first. My name's Madison. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm here representing Ernst & Young. I currently work in our digital data and analytics practice, specifically working with the government and public sector. And I graduated from UNC in 2018 with a little bit of experience in data analytics, but not a lot. So I've really been getting into that in my professional life, and I'm very excited to be here today.
I can go next. My name is Daisha McPhaul. I use hers pronouns. I am the assistant head of admissions for NC State's Institute for Advanced Analytics, and we host the nation's first professional master's degree program in analytics. And so I'm happy to be here to kind of speak about the role we play in recruiting analysts into the field. I graduated from UNC Chapel Hill in 2013, and then I have a master's degree in higher education, which has led me down this path.
And I am Christy Dougherty. I'm here representing SAS. I go by the pronouns of she, her, and hers, and I am a university recruiting and outreach specialist with SAS. So I am on the recruiting team and I hire for our interns and our early career full-time hires as well.
Awesome. I will also say hi. My name is Lindsay. I'll be one of the moderators for this panel. I'm one of the executive directors of the Carolina Data Challenge. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm really excited to be here.
I can also introduce myself. My name is Shara. I am a junior. I'm also the other co-executive director of the Carolina Data Challenge, and my pronouns are she, her, her.
Cool. Okay. So for the Q&A, I'm going to go ahead and send a link one more time into our chat. We're using a poll everywhere. So essentially the way this works is I've already preloaded a couple of questions that I was interested in hearing the answers to. Everyone's welcome to add their own questions as well directly to the poll, Ev. And you can also hopefully not thumbs down, but you can also thumbs up the questions that you want to see. And we'll get through those in that order. If there's no particular order, we'll just go through them and pick a couple and go around. So as of right now, why don't we kick off with, I don't know, I'm kind of curious to hear for each of you, how does your company foster diversity in tech and especially in data science?
I can start. So I work at the Institute, and a big part of my role is working to make sure that we have a pretty diverse incoming class every year. So we admit 120 students into our class, and when we are making decisions about who is being admitted into the program, we try to take into consideration all types of diversity, whether it's age, gender, ethnicity, academic background, but we especially see a need for diversity in terms of gender and ethnicity. And we see a huge need for that because data scientists have a very powerful tool in their hands. And it's very important for them to be able to recognize biases that they may have, recognize those in the algorithms they're developing, so that the products they are putting out there are going to be used responsibly and not continue to perpetuate systems of oppression for women, for people of color, for any individual demographic. So in our role, we try as hard as we can to develop pipelines for recruitment, to help introduce people to data science who may not be familiar with it. And then once our students are in the program, we do a lot. We've added a lot into our curriculum to help make them aware of these different potential biases that they may have within themselves that could carry on into their work.
I can piggyback off of that. I think you said it perfectly about training algorithms and how biases could be included in that. So for us at SAS, that's a big part of what we do, right? So we're a data analytics software company. So we know that the best performing teams are diverse, and we know that in order to best serve our customer base and to put out a product that we feel confident about, that we need to make sure we're having a diverse group of people looking at different algorithms as they're being developed. For the reasons Deja already mentioned, we want to make sure we're not inputting bias into these algorithms, so that down the line they are imbalanced. And for me on the university recruiting team, obviously our hand has a big impact on the talent that enters our organization. And we want to make sure that we are hiring a diverse pool of candidates. So we have made that a priority. We make sure that we are going to different HBCUs and HSIs, but also engaging with the PWIs, that primary white institutions that have diverse organizations, and that we are getting in front of those folks who maybe don't know about the opportunities that SAS has. And then we also relaunched our United in STEM diversity internship program. Basically, it is our regular intern program with a bunch of extras. And the focus is really to make sure that we are recruiting diverse populations that are historically underrepresented. And that includes neurodiverse. Previously, that was known as our autism spectrum intern program, students of color, women, and veterans and military spouses. We see these groups of people as ones that could probably use just a bigger focus on the recruitment of them, and then once they're in our organization, to retain, to recognize, and to make sure that we are putting them in a place to succeed.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that's been said. Diversity of background and thought is so important in data science. As much as we try individually to keep bias out of our studies and out of our research, can't identify your own biases unless you have, if you're growing and you have other people seeing in from different backgrounds and different ways of thinking, saying, hey, let's approach this from a different angle. And so in our recruiting process, we're really intentional about having students from a variety of colleges and backgrounds and ages and genders and race. And additionally, something that we've been talking about a lot recently, but also over the years, is instilling a love of data science in kids at a young age, both by investing in universities and schools, providing access to internet and computers for low-income families, providing mentors for entrepreneurs by words, partnering with organizations who are already doing this work, who are in communities and know the needs, but also providing initiatives just on issues that people are passionate about, and EY financing those internal initiatives to bridge that digital divide. So something, especially in recent times with everything that's been going on, trying to build more conversations and put more money into HBCUs and the organizations that are doing this work, and becoming a front runner in providing these programs ourselves. I get a little word jumbled when I'm speaking, but hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you, everybody. I guess on the flip side, what is something that you think that your organization could do better or more of to foster diversity and inclusion?
Personally, in the past couple of years that I've been at the Institute, I think one of the larger issues we see is just simple awareness. So I was happy to hear Madison speak about and Christy speak about some of the investments they've made at HBCUs and other minority serving institutions, because simply a lot of people just aren't aware of the opportunities that are out there in data science. And unfortunately, when many people think of careers in STEM, they may think of engineering or they may think of medicine, and data science is so new that a lot of people aren't really aware of the impact they could have with the skill set that they're already, cultivating as an undergraduate. So I think the area we could improve in most, and we've been developing some programming in this realm, but it's figuring out what are some areas for us to develop pipelines for students to, learn about data science and continue and begin engaging with our program, potentially years ahead of them seeking a graduate degree program. So yeah, I think the pipeline into our program would be our greatest challenge right now.
Yeah, I think as professionals, and many of us who've been in a data science role for so long, it's easy to forget about how we were introduced and who those important connections and mentors were for us. So going and continuing to invest and do research on what is the best way to introduce people and to introduce them in ways that are interesting to them and relevant to their lives, having a variety of different approaches and teaching styles. And then also just in general, having these group conversations proactively at, Ernst & Young is international, it's all over the world, but making sure we have regional and local conversations around race and diversity proactively, because it's a topic people are passionate about and it's on their minds and it's on their hearts, and it impacts everyone differently, but it's an important conversation for us to be having. So having from the leadership all the way down saying, on our teams, in our office, we want to open conversations around this and make sure that people are having their voices heard and that people who have questions are able to come and learn and have those honest dialogues.
Yeah, I'm just, again, agree with everything's been said so far. I think all of us are on very similar pages, which is great to hear, of course. What I'll add is for us, internally, I'm a recruiter, but I'm also an employee of SAS, and I've been listening in on every Friday. Our Black Initiatives group has been having what we're calling Big Fridays, and it's a call, just an open space, like real talk. People are sharing their experiences at our company, at other companies, and the good, the bad, the ugly. And what's really cool about it is a safe space. There are different folks from the business that join in, but really as a tool for learning. And so the only thing I would say is some of what I have heard, I just know that we all have room to grow and improve. And as a company, as an organization, we'd like to consider ourselves as lifelong learners. And I think we all have a lot to learn. So I think the first step in the right direction is having the open dialogue. And we're doing that right now, which is scary and exciting.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Before we do the next question, I just want to say something because a couple people just joined. If you just joined in, feel free to go to the link in the chat and you can add any questions that you want to hear, or you can also upvote the ones that have already been asked if there's one that's interesting to you. So for the next question, each of you either is or works a lot with people who are very new to data science and analytics and are generally, a lot of them are beginners in their career. And of course, at this hackathon, we have a lot of people who are just exploring. So what is like a piece of advice you'd have for people who are just starting to explore data science or are beginning their data science educations or careers?
Go ahead, Madison.
I would just say, don't be afraid to jump in. I think something that kind of slowed me down in my process in getting into this field was a little bit of imposter syndrome of thinking, oh, I don't have the experience, so I don't even know where to start, or I don't want to speak up and say, hey, put me on a project where I need to use R because I don't have the background, and what if I can't learn it, or what if they expect me to know more than I do? And what I have found, at least at Ernst & Young, is that people are excited when you're excited to learn, and really want to invest in the skills that they want. So R, SQL, all these different things. If you want to learn, there are people who want to teach you. So don't be afraid to just jump in and start learning. Don't let the imposter syndrome get you down.
The imposter syndrome is real, no matter what role you're in. Love that. But I would say for me, as a recruiter, I would not ever laugh at a student. But when I'm having conversations with students and they say, "Oh, I want to be a data scientist," and I'm like, "Great. What do you want to do as a data scientist?" Because that's so broad right now, right? Like that could mean 1,000 different things. So I think my advice would be really hone in on what skills you want to use as a data scientist. That term is very encompassing of so many different types of positions. So I would say when talking to recruiters, when talking to managers, really try to nail down what exactly you're passionate about, what you're good at, and what you want to do or what you think you want to do. Who knows, that could change once you're doing it. And try to focus on that, because I feel like data scientist is just like a big word and big fun buzzword right now. And it is truly what the role could be called, but it could be 1,000 other things too.
Yeah, I would say my biggest thing would be to ask questions. This field is pretty much built on asking questions and trying to figure out what kind of information you can pull from the data. But when you're just in general, for anyone who's thinking about what their future career is going to be and which path they want to take to get there, it's important to just ask questions. If you're interested in a particular company or a particular type of position, look up people who are doing that job. There are probably tons of people out there on LinkedIn or elsewhere who have a similar background to you and would be happy to talk to you about how they got there. So, ask questions about what their day-to-day life looks like. And if you really are really interested in what they're actually doing, ask their advice. What did they do to get here? But also ask them what tools you could use to begin preparing yourself. And fortunately, since data science has really exploded in the past decade or so, there are a lot of resources out there for you to build this skill set on your own. You don't have to wait. I have candidates who come and talk to me about our master's program all the time. And they say, well, I'm planning to take this course next year or next semester. I was like, no, you can start now. There's a lot of Coursera courses, Data Camp, lots of platforms out there where you can just start learning a little bit of coding, or getting some practice and actually improving your coding skills. So ask questions, do some informational interviews with professionals in the field, and then just explore all of the resources that are out there for free or for low cost for you to begin building your skill set now.
Awesome, thanks so much. So we talked a little bit about imposter syndrome, but I feel like that's something that everyone's always struggling with, no matter how far you get into your career, or if you're just like, I don't know, it's just a big thing for people. So I was just wondering, what advice do you have for tackling imposter syndrome?
I can start on that since I brought it up. Yeah, so I'm still a fairly recent college grad. And when I started at Ernst & Young, I had never taken a business course. I actually had never heard of Ernst & Young before I started my application process. And all of the interns around me and all of the staff around me seemed like these incredible, brilliant people. And they are incredibly brilliant. But I think I didn't understand how my unique background and my unique educational experience contributed to the ways I could bring insight into our teams. So my first piece of advice would be surround yourself with teammates who value you and see value in you. I was lucky enough to be surrounded by coworkers who saw my unique background and said, you might not know what a SWOT analysis is or what all these different acronyms are, or whatever the wording was being used, but you do have knowledge, you do have experience, you're here for a reason, and we want to help you apply what you know to this problem. The second, as has been mentioned, is ask lots of questions. Questions are your best friend because no one can be expected to know everything, and no one expects you to know everything. But if you can ask questions, you'll get there. And the last thing is be ready to fail because there will be times when you fail. And that's totally okay. If you go through life and you never fail, you've never taken any chances. So if you got that down, then just keep going for it and you'll be okay.
I love that last piece, Madison. I remember when I started my role at SAS, my mentor was like, hey, you're going to make a mistake. And as soon as you do, just come to me. We'll figure it out together. Like, it's not the end of the world. And I was just so grateful for that authenticity and like recognizing, oh yeah, you're a human and we hired you for a reason, but we also know that if you're new at this, yeah, you might make a mistake and that's okay. That like safety net from a mentor meant so much to me that I felt really empowered to try to take on new things. And even if I did make a mistake, I knew someone had my back, and that was really cool. So I guess the advice there would be to find a mentor that will help you through those types of things. Make sure, either a manager or a peer that you trust and that will empower you in that same way. And then I know fake it till you make it is so cliche, but it's kind of true. Like, there are so many times where I don't feel capable of doing something, and then you just do it. And you're like, oh, wait, I did do it. And I did sound like I knew what I was talking about. Maybe I do know what I'm talking about. And I feel like that is so more often the case than the other way. Is if you believe in yourself, even just a teeny tiny little bit, you can probably make it through whatever's in front of you and carry that through your next task as well. I would say it gets easier, but I don't know that it does. You just practice that skill, and I think the rebound time for me, at least, is quicker now, where I'm like doubting myself, and then I think through it, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna do it. It's fine. I'm just gonna do it, and then I get the confidence, and then I go and I do it. So I think that's the skill, is getting through that process in your mind faster.
I absolutely love everything Madison and Christy have said. But yeah, I didn't know what imposter syndrome was as an undergraduate until after I graduated, and I was working at UNC actually. And we were talking about it with our graduate students. And I was like, oh, that was me my entire 4 years as an undergraduate student. And I guess the biggest thing that came out of that experience was that there are a lot of people who feel the same way you do. Even in a program like ours, it is a very competitive master's degree program to get in. But once you are, it's a very collaborative environment. And it's important to recognize that we're all, subconsciously comparing ourselves to the next person or wondering if we're doing enough or if we're doing the right thing. And I guarantee you there are other people who feel the exact same way. And I would say one of the ways that's really beneficial for kind of countering that is to kind of find your tribe, kind of find colleagues or coworkers who you can talk to, and maybe they could talk you through experiences they've had, or sometimes they can just be a sounding board for you to kind of just vent and get your feelings out there. But also, managers can be very important. Sometimes you may not want to go to that person above you and say, hey, I don't feel like I'm doing this right, or I don't feel just, quite good enough. But oftentimes, they can help you figure out how to get there on your own. They can kind of, whether it's, figuring out new assignments for you, or pointing you in the direction of some resources that can help you kind of work through what that problem is at that moment. They may not solve the bigger issue of imposter syndrome, but they can help empower you a little bit more, to feel really good about the work you are doing. And sometimes they can also remind you of the successes you've had, because I feel like for a lot of people, you're at UNC or at other top tier schools where it's really easy to get down on yourself when you're not perfect. But having someone come back and say, hey, you did an incredible job on that project. Do you remember when you did this or that? And so having, your management in your corner, having some coworkers, colleagues, or your friends who can really just kind of bounce ideas off of you and kind of talk you through situations you're encountering, can really make a lot of difference in kind of helping you to fake it till you make it.
I just have one more thought on this, because it dawned on me that this just happened to me this week, where I was unsure about a job that I've been doing, like how have I been doing in general. And my manager asked me to put together a summary of some of the things that I have accomplished over the last few weeks. And just the act of doing that, I was like, oh, wow, I do feel like I'm doing a good job. So make time for yourself to do that, whether that's making a reminder on your calendar to update your resume with projects that you've completed, or just even taking the time to give yourself a little bit of praise. I think stepping back and looking at the bigger picture of what you've actually accomplished will help you build that confidence in yourself and that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I always think it's really reassuring to find out that, I think everyone goes through imposter syndrome, and it's maybe not something that you ever overcome, but it's something that you learn how to manage and realize it's just, I don't know, part of being human or something. Christy, I think you left off on a really good note to pivot to our next question. So how do you think that someone could go about like advocating for themselves in the workplace and in other professional spaces?
I think I can kind of start here, kind of piggybacking on what Christy just said. Earlier, when I, was kind of just starting my career in higher education and in admissions and recruitment, I kind of just fell into this role. It wasn't a path that I planned to take. And I was working alongside a lot of people who were a lot older than me. I was 22, 23 years old when I started in the role, and all of my counterparts had at least 20 years on me. But it really helped me whenever I got to a point where I was ready to advocate for myself for a promotion. My colleagues and supervisors and everyone, they always told me about how great of a job I was doing. And I was like, okay, the praises are great, but now I'm ready to have something that can also back that up. And one thing a mentor told me to do that was really transformative was to do my own own performance review. We have our own performance reviews that you may do annually or, at whatever intervals your company dictates. But it was an opportunity for me to really go through, the skills I had when I started the position, the skills I acquired over the past couple of years, any additional credentials I've taken on, any additional responsibilities, committees I joined. It was just an opportunity for me to really do a brain dump on everything I had done in the previous 2 years, 3 years that I was in that department. And that gave me a lot of confidence to, just schedule a meeting with my department head. And then from there, I went in and I was armed and I was very nervous and I was saying, okay, well, this, and this. I had my whole spiel ready. And he said, well, before I even got through half of it, he said, are you asking for a raise? And I said, yes. He was like, okay, well, you got it. And I didn't even have to go through the whole thing, but sometimes just doing that exercise helps give you that boost of confidence to really just speak up for yourself.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And I did something similar. I was in the middle of transitioning to a new role and took the job description of the role that I wanted and went through what I'd already accomplished with that. And same thing, I went in and had the conversation with my boss and she was like, oh, wow, you're pretty much already doing the role. And I was like, yeah, I am. And I think that helped really set me up well for that conversation. But I think the underlying theme of these two responses so far is that we put the work in for ourselves to review what we had accomplished, what our skill sets were. And when you show up to that type of meeting prepared, then that's really impressive to your leader. And they're like, wow, like I have 1,000 other things going on. I didn't even realize that you've done X, Y, and Z and that you're already here or that you've already been here for a year. It's your job to advocate for yourself always. Just make sure you're going about it in a way that's respectful. You put in the time and the effort and the work to get yourself where you need to be, and that you're prepared for that conversation, whatever it looks like. And personally, I had to write it all down because I was like, I might clam up if I get nervous in that type of conversation. So I did. I wrote out all my talking points. I wrote out all my accomplishments and literally went line by line in the job description and said, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. I got the job.
Doing that exercise can also give you the confidence to go for opportunities that you would otherwise talk yourself out of. Just having it on paper will allow you to compare it to this new job description where you may think it's completely out of your league. And I think it's pretty common for women or for minorities to really doubt themselves and, wonder if, I don't have every single one of these boxes ticked off, so I'm not going to be competitive for this job. But doing that exercise can really give you that extra boost of confidence to at least throw your hat in the ring, and then just going into every meeting, every interview, just every opportunity prepared, and really aware of what you can do, can really just help you stand out, amongst the crowd of candidates that you may be competing against.
The stats on that are wild, by the way, for like men versus women, at least, who will apply to positions based on the job qualifications. Most of the time, and not always, of course, women will look at a job and be like, oh, I don't meet every single qualification, I'm not qualified. And a man might look at the job and say, oh, I need 2 of these. So yeah, I'm going to apply, sure. And it's really crazy. And so as a recruiter, in our world, we've had discussions about how we need to change what the actual requirements of the job are versus the nice to haves to really try to help foster some more diversity in our applicant pool. Because it's true that imposter syndrome even creeps into the application process.
Yeah, I reiterate everything. The only thing I would add is, for me, something that's been really important is the people I've surrounded myself with, both in my workplace, but even just in general life, especially as you're leaving campus and you're maybe even moving to a new place, really finding people who you can talk to about work, but you can also have those vulnerable conversations with. And whether it's, I'm up for a promotion, I need you to just like tell me how I am and like hype me up. Like I need a hype man to just get me excited going into this. Or if it's something more serious where you've had, something happen in the workplace and you're not sure how you're supposed to report it, or if you should even bring this up to a manager, you don't know, where it's going to go. Having those people around you who can look into your life and really speak to that, and be a safe place to go where they see you and value you and can remind you of that when you're doubting it. That's been something that's really important for me. I appreciate my friends, and community, especially out of college, doesn't necessarily just happen. In college, often you're in classes with people, you're in clubs with people, and those close friends just kind of appear. uh, for me, I've had to be a lot more intentional about seeking out those people, or the people who are just naturally in my life saying, you're maybe not that person for me, and I need to be intentional about finding someone else to be that close friend, that person that I can confide in. So having that, I think, is really, really helpful.
Okay, that's actually a perfect segue into the next question that I wanted to ask, which was how do you go about like reaching out to find sponsors and mentors, and like not in a hackathon sense, but in a professional setting?
I can speak to, at least for SAS, we do have a formal mentor program within our organization that you can apply for to be a mentor or a mentee. We went through like an orientation and a training, and I think more organizations are starting to do similar things to that. So I would say definitely first and foremost, once you're in a role, look at what the company is offering, because there are usually a lot more things the company can provide you than you might even know about or realize. And then outside of that, I think it's about building authentic relationships, and it's a give and a take always, right? So looking for someone who will push you and challenge you, but also support you, and you'll support them. And, my mentor that I got through the SAS program, she's my mentor, I'm her mentee. And the conversations that we have, we give each other feedback. We end up coaching each other through different situations. And I so appreciate her tenure, but she also appreciates my fresh perspectives. We do go back and forth. So just make sure when you do make that connection and with someone, whether it's from a formalized group like a company would provide you, or just naturally through other avenues, that you are putting the effort in on both ends and not just being like, help me, what do I do?
Oh. We also have a formal, peer mentor program, both at someone your level in the firm and then someone slightly above you, and then even someone that's directly on your project, to kind of speak to those different areas of, I don't know where to park, and you're the mentor person that can help me with that, all the way up to, these are my professional goals and how do I get there, or this is what's happening on my project, what can we do? But I would also encourage you to just be bold in reaching out to people. I've met people at like networking events that were 40 years of experience in the field, and I just thought they were brilliant. So I sent them an email and I was like, will you grab coffee with me? Or can I take 5 minutes of your time to do a quick call? And everyone has either said yes or connected me with someone else who would be better to talk to. And that's something I've really appreciated. Is I had people I talked to for 5 minutes a couple years ago that we're still in touch with virtually, because a lot of people love to talk about themselves. So if you find someone who's really good at what you want to do and you want to learn from them, often they'll take some time out of their day to talk to you about that, whether that's in a one-time capacity or in an ongoing capacity. So don't be afraid to just send emails, LinkedIn connections. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up the one-time connections thing, because it is great if you can find a mentor that you can have an ongoing relationship with, and if your job offers it, if you're a part of a professional organization that offers it, I would say definitely take advantage of that and try to learn as much as you can from that person. But sometimes you can also learn some very valuable and critical information that can drive the rest of your career from people that you may only have one or two interactions with. And so that could be, going up to a person that you really look up to in the organization you're working for, or you may have, saw an article about a person or really seen them do something really awesome, and you just want to pick their brain a little bit and just learn a little bit about what they do and who they are, and that can kind of inspire which directions you take and which connections you seek to make from that point on. But again, also speaking to confidence, just putting yourself out there and talking to people, it can really it boosts your ego. It makes you feel more comfortable beginning to network as well, and just getting yourself in front of certain people will open up their network to you. So if even if you're not going to have an ongoing relationship with the person, they can introduce you to people and organizations that can come in handy down the road. It may not be an immediate payoff, but they can introduce you to opportunities that can pay off at some point in your career.
Alrighty, thank you. So I guess one pretty relevant thing for us is that now that we're all in this virtual setting, the way we've interacted with people is very different. So what are some ways that you guys have found works well for you in reaching out to other people and building connections online?
It's like a race to the unmute. So I would say as often as you can to use the video option in meetings and in formal meetings and in informal meetings, as long as both parties are comfortable with it. I think that really goes a long way in making it feel like a more authentic connection. Again, from a recruiter perspective, I was really nervous about this year doing virtual events totally because I'm a people person. I want to be around people and I love the interactions. But I've been really pleasantly surprised with virtual career fairs and even things like this when you have the ability to not only see other people, but when you're one-on-one in a career fair setting, no offense, don't have to shake sweaty hands. I'm sitting in my comfortable chair. My feet aren't aching. I'm not worried about the line building up behind you. I can pull up all of my resources right at my fingertips. There are so many benefits that I've really tried to focus on, but I think at the end of the day, you have to, and we've all had to do this because COVID didn't really give us a choice, but just get comfortable with being uncomfortable, especially if that's in front of a computer screen. If we had tried to have done this last year, I can pretty much guarantee nobody would have their video on, attendance would have been spotty, but now that because it's virtual, because we don't have another option, we're all trying to make the best of it. And I think that being able to do that and just accepting what you can't change helps at least get your mindset right of like, okay, well, we're going to make the best of it. And maybe instead of buying you coffee, I'll send you a $5 Starbucks e-gift card. Maybe instead of me going to Starbucks, I'm going to drink my coffee at home. That's easy ways to kind of keep it authentic and still have that face-to-face interaction, because you can tell a lot about a conversation just from seeing someone else's face.
I think since we're all kind of stuck at home right now, it is actually a lot easier to network with more people because you don't have to worry about the travel time. You don't have to worry about how you're dressed. You just have to worry about from the top up, from your waist up. But, we've been seeing a lot of folks, surprisingly, even though there's a lot of uncertainty out there, there are a lot of folks who are still interested in graduate school. And they say, well, hey, I'll hop in on this virtual session or I'll join this event that you're having. And sometimes for people, it's just about connecting with other people. Otherwise, even introverts like myself, at some point you get tired of yourself and you just want to be able to see another person's face or hear another person's voice. And so just joining in on any opportunities you can have, whether it's, a meetup group or a club or organization is having a social hour or even just a meeting, will give you the opportunity to meet new people. As an employee at NC State, I've really enjoyed being able to attend some more workshops and trainings that I otherwise would have had a hard time getting to on campus just due to scheduling. I don't have to, build out travel time at the front and back end of going to a meeting or an event. I can just, log on my computer and then get right back to my work after. And so I've met some really awesome people over the past couple of months just doing some, trainings and workshops around topics like diversity and inclusion, for example. So you can make a networking opportunity out of any social gathering you attend. So I would just say that if something even mildly piques your interest and you have the time to do it, to just quickly join. And if it's not so great, you can always leave the call. It's not awkward like in person. So yeah, just take advantage of any opportunities you have to engage with other people virtually.
Also, I love LinkedIn, so would highly recommend, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, to create one, because you can search different jobs or different companies, and you can follow companies or topics that you're interested to get content from that. I have students reach out to me like every other week saying, "Hi, I'm interested in what you do. I'm interested in your company. Can we just have a quick phone call?" And we'll talk from anywhere from half an hour to an hour and a half, just answering questions, talking about how to transition from student life to adult life, all of those things. And I always welcome people to message me. Maybe I'll get a ton of messages after this, but it's a great way to build your network and stay in touch with people that you've connected with in the past. Also, as was mentioned, virtual events right now, you have access to events from all over the world in a way that wasn't really feasible before. So as I mentioned, when you are on LinkedIn or just generally, if there's companies you're interested in, if you follow their content and get their newsletters, a lot of them are training programs that were on the other side of the world to be virtual events. And now you can go in and meet professionals in the field or professors who are hosting these classes and allowing you to join in a really unique way. So definitely make the most of that, because this is a unique time to get to see into that world.
Okay, awesome. To pivot topics a little bit, what are some bits of advice that you have for picking yourself up again after making a mistake?
I think the first thing is to, try to get out of your own head a little bit and just realize it's not the end of the world. Sometimes even for me, it's just a matter of realizing that other people have made worse mistakes. It's not going to, it's not going to crush me. And it may be disappointing to you or other people, but you're probably beating yourself up more than anyone else is criticizing you. So, just take a breath, take an opportunity to realize that, you can fix this, or you can just do better next time if, it's kind of a one and done opportunity. But, taking the opportunity to really look at what you've done, like how you did it, and, identifying, where it went wrong or what were some opportunities for you to do something a little bit different or do it better, can really help inform the way you tackle that problem the next time you encounter it. And sometimes, again, like I think it was Madison said it earlier, you're going to fail. Failure is important. It's just how you respond to it that's really going to define your career. Your employer is really going to look at how you handled that situation. Were you still poised? Were you still professional? Did you use it as a learning opportunity? And then ultimately, did the product you came up with the next time really exceed their expectations because of that failure? And so sometimes, failure can be a really great motivator. It can allow you to pay, a lot more attention to details. It can push you to come up with more creative solutions. But ultimately, it's important to take risks. You're not going to achieve any different results by doing things exactly the same every time. So, take those risks and just take the opportunity to learn from, whatever the outcome was.
Couldn't agree more. I think the first piece about you're holding yourself to a higher standard, that is so true. And as much as earlier we mentioned, lots of people like to talk about themselves. Nobody cares about you and what you're doing as much as you do. And that's just the reality, despite whatever else there might be. So I think when we hold ourselves to that high of a standard, you can be really hard on yourself. But I think the more mistakes you make, again, like the quicker you're able to bounce back from them. I would say advice for bouncing back would be to take ownership. If that means that you need to tell the right people that you have made a mistake in order to correct it or to move forward, you're going to have to take a bite of humble pie and admit your wrongdoing. And so the first part is ownership, and then the second part is lessons learned. Really taking a good hard look at, okay, why did I make this mistake, or like why did I fail in this way, and then how can I do better next time, and then making sure that you do everything in your power to do better next time. I think there's always going to be those moments of like, haunting of previous mistakes that you make. You know, they say like, why do I only think about that when I'm trying to fall asleep? And that's the one thought that comes to mind is a mistake I made 10 years ago. But I think the more that you build your confidence and learn from your mistakes, the easier it'll be to make them. And if you're not making mistakes, I feel like you might be playing it safe, and it's good to take risks and to learn something new. And the best way to learn is by failing.
Yeah, it sounds cheesy, but I would say, take a deep breath. Whether that means, close your laptop and walk away for a minute and just say to yourself, I am more than my work. That's something I try to make a habit of doing genuinely each day. When I close my laptop, I'm like, okay, whether work was great or work was awful, I'm like, I'm more than my work. At the end of the day, I'm more than my achievements. Keeping that mentality helps you to put a little bit of separation between you and what you're doing. That's really important for keeping your mental health, because mental health is so, so important, especially during COVID times. We're kind of all trapped in our homes and stuck in our heads, and really getting space from it and saying a mistake is a mistake, but it's not who I am, is really important. Also, exactly like you said, addressing it head on. Hiding from your problems won't make them disappear. You can run from your mistakes all your life, and you're not going to end up where you want to be. So really addressing it head on, people respect that and understand that there are mistakes that are made, and if you deal with the consequences, you can keep working forward and grow from them.
Great, thanks so much. We do have one question in the chat, so I want to make sure that gets asked. The question is, how has being different or diverse from others in the data science field helped you?
I guess I can start. I'm not a data scientist. I do want to start with that disclaimer. But I do believe that one, embracing, what makes me different from other people is what has helped me achieve what I have, by my age. Again, I'm working in higher education. I'm working with a lot of people who are a lot older than me. And they think a lot differently than I do. I think oftentimes people who've been in a profession for a long time can they can really begin to start thinking the same way. And having someone who comes in with a different perspective, it may be scary. It may feel like someone is coming in and trying to shake things up. But ultimately, you're bringing new and fresh ideas to the table. In our program, when we are recruiting students, another reason why we really love bringing in diverse candidates, for age, prior work history, ethnicity, gender, it's because they're going to be able to contribute some really creative ideas to the problems they're tackling in the classroom. Our practicum manager says, possibly the worst thing that could happen for one of our practicum teams is to have 5 white guys who are NC State statistics majors on one team because their perspectives are going to be pretty similar, but if you have somebody who's a stats major, somebody who's a computer science major, maybe someone who was, an EMT in a past life, or, other different backgrounds, they're able to contribute ideas. Maybe you're having that robust group discussion and just really spitballing ideas, and someone may have a thought about something they learned or something they encountered, a while ago that can really redefine the way that project is going to take shape. For example, our students, whenever they first begin the program, they have a summer practicum project they're working on, and every student in the class is working from that same data set. Down the road, they're going to have their own projects, but for the summer, everyone's working from the same data set, and each team is coming up with whatever problem they're going to try to solve using that data set. And about 2 years ago, that data was on opioid overdoses in North Carolina, but also in a couple of other states across the country. And I think in that year, we had 2 students who were former EMTs and at least 1 or 2 others who had healthcare related backgrounds, and they were able to come up with some really interesting projects. Their projects were a lot more intriguing than some of the others, because one was able to point to a drug that is used to treat overdoses. Another one was talking about a particular treatment protocol that is used in healthcare whenever opioid overdoses are involved. And so those are types of things where they probably would have never thought of those things if they didn't have somebody on that project who had that healthcare background. And so, I would say that it's important to not, always think about diversity, even though it's important. I have candidates who come to me all the time and, ask, how can I stand out on my application? And sometimes you stand out by not trying to stand out. Really think about what makes you who you are, what experiences you've had, what is special about your background, what have you achieved, and really just being able to for yourself and speak to why those things make you such a great person, a great employee, a great student. That is ultimately going to help you stand out. Sometimes some of our most interesting students aren't trying to be interesting. They may have happened to do a couple of study abroad semesters, or they engaged on an internship, and maybe it was one story from that internship that they talked about in their personal statement that really caught our attention. And so I would say really just focus on what makes you who you are, and then get really comfortable with, tooting your own horn and really trying to boost yourself and say, I've done these things, or this is who I am, and this is what is going to make me a good data scientist, a good graduate student, a good data scientist on the job market.
I'd love to build on that. I didn't originally have a background in data science, or at least not an extensive background. I kind of fell into my major as economic and public policy because I just found that I loved it, and that had a lot of econometrics and research. But I didn't have a lot of job experience in that. I was actually a paintball instructor, and then I worked at Yopo for a while, and then I worked in housing. Go Cobb if there's any Cobb Squad people out there. Go Heels. But I remember when I applied for my internship with EY, one of my interviewers was looking at my resume and she looked a little bit confused and asked, not in any condescending way, but just genuinely, she was like, you don't really have any business experience here. And I was like, no, you're right, I don't. Not tangible working in a business environment. This is how my public policy degree has equipped me to look at challenges from a unique perspective, especially government challenges. And this is how my economics degree has, built these analytical skills in me that I can apply to business. This is how my residential housing experience taught me how to work with diverse groups and organize large events and engage with stakeholders on a daily basis. And she ended up being an RA, and we talked about that for the whole interview. And then my next interviewer had worked at the World Bank and been a researcher there. So we talked about international development in his experience for a lot of the interview. And those connections are, I think, one of the most important things that came up in my interview. It was not necessarily just, oh, these are the cookie cutter experiences that I've had that you're looking for, but this is how I know I can apply my unique background and my unique skills into what you're doing. And then with that, I am a total nerd and I love to learn. So constantly saying, this is, the unique things that I have that I can bring, but also what do you want me to learn? Because I would love to learn it. And having those attitudes, I think, has really helped me to grow in the role that I'm at and helped me to get into our data science field. I specifically requested when I was given my full-time offer, hey, I love the business side of things, but I want to learn tech. I want to be in data. I don't necessarily have the experience, but if you'll give me the opportunity, I will learn it. And they were like, sure. And having mentors there to help me build me up, and take the skills I had and apply them in the way that my job now does has been really important. So that's been my experience.
Okay, so we are at 6:59 right now, and I want to make sure we're respectful of everybody's time. First, I want to say thank you to all of our panelists. This is really, really great. And also thank you to all of our participants for coming out. With the last minute or so, I also want to get the panelists to share any final pieces of advice, words of wisdom, resources, or plugs for their organization that they might want to let you all know about before we head out.
I mentioned briefly earlier our United STEM Diversity Internship Program. If you are on Handshake, those are all posted on Handshake. They're also just posted to our regular SAS careers page. We're really excited about our internship program across the board, and with diversity being such a big focus for everyone right now, and should be always. We welcome any applicants who are looking for opportunities next summer.
I would say one of the biggest takeaways from this panel that I could share is to do your own personal inventory or your own performance review to really just take stock of what you have to offer, what skills you have, what background you have that can really be beneficial to an organization, and just have that list on hand at all times and update it periodically. But in the Master's of Science and Analytics program at NC State, we are currently accepting applications for our class that will begin next June. So you can visit our website, analytics.ncsu.edu, to learn more about it. We also have some virtual information sessions that happen every couple of weeks, so you can feel free to register for one of those to learn more about what we have to offer.
I would say keep learning, keep asking questions. Be bold is a very cheesy way of phrasing it, but don't be ashamed of who you are. Understand what your unique skills and experiences are, and bring that with all you've got. We have internships and full-time positions. Our application process has closed for the fall, but keep an eye on Handshake, because with COVID, I'm not sure, but keep an eye and see if anything else opens up as we go through the fall and into the spring. And if you ever have questions, like we were saying, reach out, find people who do the work you're interested in. And if you ever want to talk to me on LinkedIn, add me. Always happy to answer questions. But if you're here and you're learning and you're researching, that's a great place to be starting. So keep building on that.
Yeah, all right. Thank you again, Daisha, Madison, and Chrissy. This is really, really nice. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.